For those who already entered the room, we're gonna be waiting 2 to 3 minutes so everybody gets their seats. So I see people just greeting us. Hi, Paolo. Good evening. Great. I'm gonna give you some time to join us. Nice to see people we have seen yesterday in our first webinar of the week. Today we have a special guest. So we're going to give some time for people to join like yesterday. There you go. Hi, Kenya. Thank you. Oh, you have the chance, Paulo, to talk to Dani today.
Yeah, Paulo, too bad you missed my talk. I heard the room was full then. I know they recorded it, all the breast T-cell stuff, but then it was only available for a short time. I didn't catch up on everything I missed either.
Okay, but I'm sure we're going to have opportunities to share interesting things tonight that Paulo is part
definitely.
of. So thank you for coming on our webinar, to our webinar. Just check here a little bit of time, another 2 minutes. So thank you for everybody that's already here with us. I ask you guys for a little bit of patience, because sometimes they're maybe running a little bit late or having some troubles linking in. But I see everybody getting their seats and ready for this amazing time we're going to be together with Dani today. Let's see, 1 minute more. I'm just checking here. So 7:03, but 7:04 we start. Good evening, everyone. Great. Let's see numbers, people coming in. Good. So hello, everybody. Happy to have you all in this amazing webinar we're putting out today. So today we have a special guest, Dani Hersey, which has been with us in this journey now for some good time and has a lot of new things to share with us regarding Transforming Kids and some practical examples of what you could do in your classroom starting tomorrow. Why not? And with no further ado, I don't want to take the time you're listening to my voice, but the important voice in the room right now and on the stage. Please, Dani, welcome. Thank you very much for being here with us. It's a pleasure to having one of our authors of this important collection with us tonight to tell us a little bit more of how we explore and connect. I think those are important things that we have to keep in mind in every classroom we enter. Thank you very much for all the participants, and that session is being broadcasted on YouTube, and we're recording it also. So if someone has lost it, it's always been a chance to follow up on our YouTube channel with the record of this session. Okay, thank you, Danielle. The stage is yours. Good evening. Happy to have you with us.
All right, thanks, Enrique. It's great to be here. So hello, everyone out there. I can't see you, but I'd like to say hello. It's great to be with you here tonight. I'd like to learn a little bit about you all. So please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Maybe share where you're joining us from, share your context. Are you teaching? Are you a coordinator? Did any of you have the chance to participate in the webinar last night with Claire Venables, Priorities for the Post-Pandemic Classroom? It's okay if you missed it, but this will definitely build on what she started with us. So while you share a little bit about you, I'll share a little bit more about myself. My background is in art and illustration, but it was a passion for languages that I discovered by accident that got me into English language teaching back in 2007. This was part of a journey of self-discovery that eventually led me from the United States, Boston, to Brazil, where I currently teach and write in Sao Paulo. So although my creativity has always influenced my teaching approach with games and cooperative hands-on activities, it was in Brazil that I got inspired by the US Embassy's promotion of the maker movement and started interweaving more collaborative activities into my lessons. As a materials writer, most recently for the Transfer Me Kids series, I've been developing lessons that seek to spark young learners' creativity while building relationships alongside collaborative and communicative skills. And it's my pleasure to share some of the highlights from this project with you tonight. So I'm just going to peek in the chat. We have somebody from Curitiba from Turkey. Welcome. That's great. And there's probably lots of other folks on YouTube that I can't quite see here, but feel free to introduce yourselves and keep going. And any questions you have, feel free to put those in the chat as well. So there's one more piece of my story that relates to what I'd like to talk about tonight. That is me. When I was in school, I was an incredibly shy student who would never say a word in class, and I had a hard time connecting with my peer group as a whole. But it was through some dynamic, interactive, yet low stakes activities that I discovered ways to express myself and started building communication skills while bonding with my peers. Some of these activities were improvisational theater games introduced by my best friend, Nitsa, who sadly was taken by COVID last year. So I'm remembering her as I share a little bit of my journey. As we all try to move on from monumental losses from this pandemic, I'm remembering the spark that was lit in me, that shy student so many years ago, lit by friendship and forms of creative expression. So we all know that healthy relationships are foundational to learning and that teaching is by nature relational work. Most students are eager to get back to school these days and see their peers, but we can't take it for granted that these connections, these friendships will happen organically. Professor Barry Carpenter, an expert on mental health and education, discusses 5 levers of recovery, which you might have heard from Claire in last night's webinar. I'm going to touch on most of these tonight as well. The first lever is relationships. So as we went online and went hybrid and as we had to isolate in our homes, besides the loss of routine and structure, children have lost friendship and social interaction. Barry Carpenter says many of the relationships that were thriving may need to be invested in and restored. We need to plan for this to happen and not assume it will. So even though the relationships students have built are foundational and have been an anchor during these tumultuous times, these relationships will become very fragile if not invested in. So a lot of the activities I want to show you tonight are to strengthen those relationships or maybe rebuild them from the start. The second lever that Carpenter talks about is community. And as we come back to our own schools, we need to understand the particular needs of our community as we adjust. What's happening in the lives of our students? What are they bringing to the table? Every community is different, and we need to be in tune to what's going on and to how we can bring our community together and build community in our own classrooms. The next lever is transparent curriculum. This is the idea of co-constructing the curriculum with students, giving them a voice, letting them know what the next steps are, letting them know what it is we're learning about, how we're going to approach it, but also letting them share their own opinions and how they would like to go about that. Then there's metacognition. So this is understanding how you understand, how you think. And I see this as involving different environments, different ways of learning, different ways of thinking, and allowing students to explore some of those different ways. And finally, the last lever is space for students to simply be, to rediscover self, to find their voice in learning. I agree with Barry Carpenter that the loss of learning is not so important as the loss of relationships and community and mental well-being. So we're going to lean on these levers and use them as a guide throughout this journey. In this webinar, I'm going to focus mainly on relationships and community and a little bit of metacognition. And I'm going to be sharing some cooperative activities and games. And in these, I think of them as three different categories: games in which students need to collaborate to win, games in which students explore a topic together, and games that give students opportunities to express themselves in different ways. So before I continue, I'd like to ask a quick poll question to you, if that poll question could be shared. And I'd like to know how you use games in your classroom. And you can select one or maybe more of those answers. There might be more than one that's relevant to you, but what is the most common way you use games in your classroom, or is it a very rare occurrence? So if that poll could be shared, you all can choose your answer.
I don't know if they're seeing the poll.
Yeah. You can also say anything you'd like about your own ways of using games and cooperative activities in the chat. But hopefully that poll will be nice and convenient to choose an answer.
Expect the poll to be up.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. Now we have it.
I see Talita uses games related with the content that we're going to work with. That's great. I do too.
So we can see the poll. Use games. So the options are: you can choose more than one option for review, as a warm-up, very rarely, or other.
And if you'd like to share your other in the chat, feel free. I see Priscilla says other because I use them all the time. That's great.
Exploring.
Warm up and exploring. Great.
I use games in my classes when I want to review, introduce, or practice something. Right, Lucas?
Okay, if we have the results of the poll, that can be shared. I think, can we see that on the screen there, and we can kind of get a sense of what everyone else is saying?
Yes, there we are. So luckily, we have 0 responses on very rarely.
Okay, I actually don't see it, so you might have to tell me, Enrique, what
I'll tell you. So I use games for review 22%, as a warm-up 56%, very rarely 0, and other with 22%.
Okay, all right, great. And I'm seeing some of the others again in the chat. We have L2 expression, great. Sometimes I'll even change the book activities into game-like activities, says Lucas. Definitely, I do that all the time too. And these books that are coming out, the Transform Me Kids series, we wrote games and interactive activities into the lessons. So you don't have to do all those gymnastics of taking an activity in the book and then making it into a game. It's already done for you. So a lot of what I'll be sharing tonight is from that series. So I'm going to start with the first category, games in which students have to collaborate to win. This is a step away from competition. Competition can be fun. There's nothing wrong with that. We see that a lot in gamification. But as we seek to build community and build relationships, what would happen if we took that out of the game and made everyone have to work together? So I see guessing games as a great way to do this. And we've all done guessing games, I know. I'm going to share just a few of my favorites. This first one is called Applause, Please. And I don't know if I'm sure a lot of you have played the game. We say colder or warmer to give clues. So a student has to find something in the classroom. They'll probably go out into the hall. Everyone will say, okay, it's going to be the bookshelf over there, or this toy over here. That student comes back in and has to find that object. Now, normally we give spoken clues like, oh, you're getting warmer, you're getting closer, you're getting colder, farther away. That's an old game. What I really like about this game is instead of that, the children will applause, they'll clap for their classmate. So as that person comes back in the room and starts wandering around, is it over here or is it over there? They'll know that they're getting close when their peers start cheering for them, which is super encouraging. In a game like this, when you feel kind of on the spotlight, it's really good to get that applause from your peers to know that, oh, I'm doing something right. And when it slows down, okay, well, maybe I should go the other way. And everyone participates together. And there's no need for verbal communication at this point. Everyone's expressing themselves in a different way. You can come up with different gestures as well. It doesn't have to be clapping. It can be the students can think of certain gestures they'd like to show for when they're getting close or not. And the item that's hidden can also have to do with the lesson. So you can think about what that item is and maybe where you want to hide it, just as a way to spark curiosity and get children ready to work with each other to move to the next place in the lesson. The other game I have here is reverse charades. And I'm sure we've all played charades where we have to act out a key word or a scene or something and everyone has to guess. I don't know about you, but I used to be terrified to get up. I was the shy kid. So I get up in front of everyone and I'm acting, but they don't get it. And I try again. So I discovered this version where you just flip that. So the person in the hot seat, instead of having to perform, they actually get to guess. And you can have two people in the hot seat. That also takes a little bit of the pressure off. But in this case, the teacher can show a card with a keyword or whatever it is they're going to guess, could be a picture too, to the rest of the group. And the person in the hot seat doesn't see it. And the rest of the group, everybody all at once has to act out and gesture and do the charades to make that person or that pair guess what it is. And let me tell you, it's hilarious. I've done it. There's just nothing like watching all of your peers, everyone going crazy at once to try to communicate something. And it gets people working together too. It's not like it doesn't have to be one person acting, like there can be two people involved in it as well. Maybe two people pretending to carry something or throw something back and forth, like for a game. There's lots of creative ways that will just come spontaneously from this. And this collaboration, I just love to see it. It's beautiful. Another collaborative game, another guessing game, is what I like to call Maker Pictionary. And this one, I'll tell you how this kind of evolved in my own classroom. I wanted to do, instead of Pictionary with drawings, I wanted to do it with Play-Doh. And I actually forgot to bring my Play-Doh that day. And I looked around my classroom and I had some string. So I had my student use the string. And we took turns guessing vocabulary words that each of us made with string. And I thought, well, we can use anything for this. And I'm always collecting loose parts, different items, clothespins, little sticks, anything at all that we can build with. And even things in the classroom. So like an eraser, a paper clip, anything at all. So if we put a bunch of those together and then give students the option of taking a word and creating one of those words with whatever they want to use, and then everyone has to guess what it is. There can be movement. You can create a piece and then move it. This very first picture on the left here, this is actually from Kenya Santos' classroom. She's going to be sharing a talk this week too. She has some blocks and some paper clips and rubber bands, and it looks like there's a person or an insect or something being formed. The second one, I actually did this one online. So we were sharing this through the screen, and we were talking about transportation. So that was a truck. The third one here, I'm guessing you could probably see ice cream right away. But can you guess which seasons of the year we were both trying to represent, both me and my student? Obviously hers was summer. A favorite thing we like to do in summer is have ice cream. And that was a great way. She just took a little piece of foam, curled it into a cone and put a ball of yarn on top. Mine, I was thinking spring, and you might not see it. She got it. You kind of have to feel your audience, but she got it right away. I have a tree there. And I was thinking about the lovely blossoms we have on the Ipe, I think it's called, tree here in South America. And I just love seeing those bloom throughout the spring. It seems like they come and go and come and go. And the yellow ones are my favorite. So this started a conversation about sensory details, and then we used that in a writing that we did later on. And the other one, these were a little bit more abstract words. This was also in an online class. So we had a list. I always give students choice too. I don't want to say, okay, you have to make this word. And if they get stuck, it can be difficult. I give them a list of words to choose from. Sometimes I've even put them on an app where they can click if they don't like a word and keep going and get a word that they like, or I'll have a bank of words on the board and they can choose one of those. So some of these were luxurious. That was one of them. Festive. I forget the others, but they were related to a unit on celebrations, and each of us made some of those and we had to guess the word. So that's just one of my absolute favorite games. You don't need drawing skills. And some of us say, well, I'm not creative, but this is a way for creativity to develop naturally. It's just a space that we can allow. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need any art supplies, just literally whatever you have on hand. And when I teach online, it's whatever the students have by their side. Okay, I've got a pencil. What can I make with a few pencils? How can I put these together? How can I express this idea? So it's a great way to review vocabulary, but also maybe to introduce a new topic, some concepts. And if we're working together, pairs can make it together for the rest of the class to guess as well. There's many options with this one. Another category, as I think about ways that students have to collaborate to win, is having them fail together. And that seems kind of scary, but failure is a part of life, and learning from failure is super important. And we had some lessons in our Transform Me Kids series that address that. So one of the games, there's going to be failure, but it's a fun failure. It's kind of a spectacular failure. So this game called Popcorn, everybody is sitting in their seats in the circle, wherever, and one at a time, students will pop up. They'll just stand up. But if two students stand up at the same time, then they have to sit down again. Depending on your time, you can have just those two students sit down and then start again, or everyone could sit down and you can start again. And then we all fail together. And it's kind of funny because you're thinking, should I stand up? Should I stand up? Okay, pop, here I am. And then pop, here's another person. and then pop, two people, uh-oh, sit down. And we laugh. There's a little bit of failure involved. There's a little bit of silliness involved. We can pop dramatically. So I thought that was a cool game. It reminded me of one I did back in my theater days, in my improv days. And this one, concentrate and count to 10. That's what I call it. I'm not sure what it's actually called. But I've done this one with students to get them focused and also in tune with each other before they gave a presentation or before they did something together as a class, just to build unity, but also focus. So this one works. Everyone stands in a circle, and of course it can be a socially distanced circle. And we all look at the center. We don't look at each other. And we have to try to count to 10 in any order. So similar to popcorn, anyone can say 1, and then someone else says 2. And then there's a pause, and then somebody else says 3 and 4. But if 2 people speak at the same time, we start again. And we laugh and we go with it again, we do it again. And then when you're really in the rhythm, and I found this right before I did improv comedy shows, you really kind of feel when your teammates are going to give that next number. And so you can wait and you can know when to go. It's just something that happens with group dynamics. It's a fun thing to experiment with once in a while. Don't let these games drag on too long because they could get frustrating, but I know you can get to 10 for sure. And then another of my favorite ways for students to collaborate is hands-on challenges, building something. I love to construct things, to have students work in teams to construct things. One of my favorite things to build is a tower. You can build it out of anything. These are pool noodles cut into rings, and I have toothpicks, and we just stick them together. And can you build something that can support weight, that can hold a toy or something else, and having students work together, maybe to try to arrive at a predetermined height, or to set their own goals. Okay, we want it to hold this toy. How can we do that? How high can we make it? Working together, a little bit of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, but through playing, through tinkering. These are always very low stakes activities. In the other picture, you can see here my students on the first day of class. Each of them had a little card, and they got to say something about themselves, and say their name and draw what was important to them. And then I had them cut them into slits or just on the sides, and they had to figure out together how to make a structure or a tower and how to connect everybody's name. And they did that by making those paper slits connect to each other. I didn't tell them how to do it. I think I had to give them a hint about the slits at one point, but they were stacking them and trying to do like a card tower. And then they finally realized that if you put the slits into each other, you can actually build a stronger structure. It wasn't symmetrical, but it didn't have to be. And they eventually got everyone together. And we use that as an opportunity to talk about our class as a community and how we're all connected to each other, how we all have something to offer each other, and we can all support each other. Another one that I've done besides building something is just a simple problem solving activity. And there's many problems we can solve as games. One of these that came up to me in a pinch when my other plan got locked out of the room I wanted to use at the good old school. I had to think very quickly, and so I had to solve a problem. And what I did, I had, I think, a pencil case and a whole group of students, and they had to figure out how to transport that pencil case from one side of the room to the other without walking and without throwing it. It took them a while. I had to give them a few clues later on, and what they ended up doing was using their books. So maybe it's a toy this time. And also they couldn't touch the object like with their actual hands. That was another rule. So if one student passes it to the next student on their book very carefully, and then they pass it to the next one, and then we try to get it across the room like that. And I think I had a rule about how many steps they could take at a time, which was really only 1 or 2. They had to work together to do it, and they did it. We had some creative solutions to that. And some more hands-on challenges. I use very simple materials. And here's one from the books where everyone has an object, any kind of object. And we play the game walk, walk, stop, which comes up a lot in some of these lessons, where students just walk around the room until the teacher says stop, or this could be done with music as well. The teacher plays music. When the music stops, everyone stops. The person you're closest to, you're going to compare your object. So I've got this stick, I've got this cap. What can we do with it? What can we do with these two together? Can we make something where you balance? Can we make a catapult? What can we do? Can we make a game? You might have to give them a more specific category, like make a game with these two. And then they walk again, walk, 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 stop, and then find somebody else with another object. And they have to play with them and see what they can do with them. Can they make a game? Can they make a structure? And it's just a playful activity. It allows creativity to develop. It's not one of those where you need creativity. You just play, very low stakes, see what you can do. And children are great at this naturally, but we want to give them the opportunity for those skills to develop. So simple objects, combine them playfully, and then lead that into the discussion of what you're going to talk about, maybe about how things are built, maybe about games and play, maybe even about computer programming, lots of connections that can be made. So on the first section, collaborate to win. We talked about guessing games, failing together and then trying again, and then some hands-on challenges. So just a few maybe tips, some do's and don'ts. Do demonstrate some of these, just like I did here. You need to demonstrate just very simply, but leave the results open-ended. So don't show the solution, don't show the answer, don't show the final product necessarily, but maybe just show, okay, look, these items can connect like this. What can you do with it? How high can you make it? Just prompt them with a simple challenge. Fail spectacularly. I got this from, I think, Vivify STEM, or one of the STEM folks I follow on Instagram, where you don't just fail, you fail and you laugh. So same thing when you're building something and it falls down. Don't let them get frustrated. Just say, wow, that really fell this time. And look, the toy went all the way across the classroom. That's hilarious. Laugh at yourselves, have fun with it. And then with that, try to teach a growth mindset. How are we learning from this failure? How can we do it again and do it differently? Have fun with failure and do it together. And with this, don't worry about having to be an expert. You don't have to be an engineer or a science teacher, a math teacher. I'm not at all, but I introduce STEM challenges to my students. I like the old saying, how teachers are not a sage on the stage, but a guide on the side. So we can coach them. We can say, yeah, try it again. I think you were trying something really good there. Maybe you can use this in another way, but we don't have to know the answers. We can learn together with them. So we don't have to be the expert. We're the expert at the topic. We teach the subject, whether it's English language or another academic subject, that's what we're bringing. But we don't have to know all the things. Knowledge is something we build as a community. So the next category of games and collaborative activities is exploring the topic that's going to be introduced in the lesson. So a lot of these activities are things we can do with pairs and groups. One of my favorites, and this is a classic, I'm sure a lot of you know this one, is find your partner. So we have a mix, maybe papers. Maybe it's two pictures that match. Maybe it's a picture and then the word that matches the picture. Maybe for more advanced students, it's the first half of a sentence and the second half of a sentence. Anyway, whatever these are, we mix them up, put them in a cup, a bag, whatever. Every student draws one, or you just distribute them randomly, whatever you need to do to be distanced and safe as we are nowadays. And then students mingle and have to find their partner. And then they have to work together. Once they find that pair, they have to do something with it. So maybe it's a question that they have to answer. Maybe they have an object that they matched the word to, or they matched two matching objects. They have to talk about, so how does this relate to the subject we're learning today? How does this relate to something else? They have to talk and make those connections. Similar to this one, again, is walk, walk, stop, and this time talk. So we could do that holding loose parts like I showed you before, but we can also stop, talk, and maybe answer a question. This could be a question on the board, maybe a question that's projected and changes each time. So students walk around the room randomly. You can even give them some style. Okay, walk like a zombie this time, or walk like you're really tired this time, and then stop. And then the closest person or people that they're near, they need to answer the question of the day and then have a little discussion about that. With these two in particular, and I'll mention this again, it's really, really helpful to have some sentence frames, question frames, just a little basic structure so students can share their ideas. So I think that blah, 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 or what do you think about blah, blah, blah. Whatever they're talking about, it's good to give them just a little simple structure that they can use so they don't freeze on the spot. So another thing in this list is puzzles, and it's super simple to take an image that relates to the topic and then just cut it into random shapes. They don't have to look like actual jigsaw pieces. Don't spend the time doing that, but laminate it, cut it into random shapes, and then have students try to put it together. They can either do this as a group where everyone has one, and then they have to work together to see how the puzzle fits together. Or they can do this in pairs where the pair has a full puzzle and they have to put the pieces together. And again, if you're worried about social distancing, there are creative ways to do this. Maybe they can hold a ruler or a stick and shuffle those into order. They don't have to be super close to be able to do this. We can find workarounds. Another one is scrambled sentences or questions. So these are students that are able to put sentences together, and we have one word or a few words on a card. Make it easy. This is not a grammar test. I do these at the beginning of class, which is why if you want to do a grammar or something review, that's fine. Do that in another context if you're reviewing. But to introduce an activity, to introduce a topic, I like to have these questions or maybe a statement, which they can agree or disagree with. And same thing, it could be every student has a card and they have to line up. You might have them all the same color. So these 5 that are yellow, that's one sentence. These 5 cards that are green, that's another sentence or question. Or you can give a full set to pairs and have them put it together. Again, you can be creative with socially distancing. One thing I like to do is make a fishing pole. So just a simple pencil, a stick, tape a magnet to it, and then whatever cards you're working with, just add a paper clip and you have something magnetic. And then as you drop them in a pile, you catch one. And then students can start putting them together that way, kind of like go fishing. Gives them a little extra fun, a little extra dynamic as they put the cards together. Or it could be a card that you're going to answer. It's got a question on it. And what the one that you catch is the one that you answer, or the one that you ask. Give them an option if they want to answer it themselves or ask it to a peer. And then one more group activity that I wrote into several lessons in this series is a tableau or a living picture, a dramatic picture. This is a very old-fashioned game. We've been doing it since before internet times. It used to be a parlor game back in the Victorian era, I believe. And the idea is you just make a scene. You use any props that you have, and they could be special props or they can be whatever is in the classroom. And you make a scene to represent that. Now, this could relate to a topic you've been discussing in class, maybe something you're revisiting. One of the ones we did in the books is, what does a good community look like? And after several lessons exploring that, students had to show that in a tableau. There can be a little bit of guessing, like, oh, I think they're talking about this. I think I see people planting a tree and talking about environmentalism here. They could guess, or they can just show and or tell, but this also allows students to work together and produce something that can be shared, just to explore that topic that they're in, either to review it or to preview it. So finally, some tips for this section, exploring a topic. So definitely model pair work. You might even have some volunteers demonstrate pair work, students that you know are ready to speak and ask and answer those questions. Have them do a little role play about what it's supposed to look like. And like I mentioned before, do provide some sentence starters and question frames. I wrote a lot of this into the lessons for Transform Your Kids. You can write your own depending on what you're studying. So, and again, simple ways for students to share their opinion, to agree, to disagree, to ask a question, just the basic starter. So what do you think about this? I actually think blah, blah, blah. Whatever works for your group. And then don't assume that, I skipped one, but I'll come back to it. Don't assume that students all students need the same kind of prompting. Like, don't assume we're all in the same place. Some students need a little extra guidance. Some students can only just say a few words to answer that question, and they're not going to just yet take the initiative. But going back to that last do, if you repeat activities, do them many times, not to excess, of course, but do them many times, make them part of your routine. Students will get it. Students will know, okay, this is what we're doing now, and I think I can do it better this time. And that will help students of different levels, different abilities, be able to show their best and explore some of these together. So finally, my final category, as I think about games and collaborative activities, are ways to explore self-expression. With that is sharing opinions. And some of these are non-verbal ways to express opinions. Before we even start the unit, here's just a few things we're going to talk about. And so this one, opinions walk, you have one side of the room as, oh, this is cool, I want to learn about that. The middle is maybe, not so sure. And the other side, nope, not my thing. And then you say the topic, or you say the area of study. So for example, exploring the ocean, learning about underwater, about shipwrecks, things like that. Is that cool? Is that maybe, or nope, not my thing. Let students walk to the side of the room that shows their opinion. Or if you're online, do this on shareable, like a Jamboard or Google Slides, or anything that's shareable where students have their own avatar that they can move along that continuum either way. And this lets students find out what they have in common, interests they have in common. It can also spark their curiosity about the topic you're going to explore. You might find out how excited or not they are about the topic and find some ways to adjust it as needed. So just a great way for students to express themselves without yet having to use words. Although you could, after doing this, have them share why. So they have this opinion. Why do you have that opinion? Maybe they can talk to people of the same opinion, or maybe talk to somebody with a different opinion. Lots of ways you can use this as well. Another way to explore self-expression without always speaking is to discover commonalities, discover things we have in common. And that can be done with some yarn, some string. This is a classic. I'm sure some of you have done this before, where you toss a ball of yarn or some string around the circle. And after you catch it, you hold on to a piece, and then you throw it to the next person, and then they throw it to the next and the next and the next. And then you have this web. Each person that catches it has to either answer a question or say something about themselves, say something they like, and please give them some guidance, give them some examples. So I'm sharing things that I like in the summer. I'm sharing things that I like to eat. Keep it low stakes, keep it simple. And after you have this web, you see how everyone's connected. One option is you can throw the string backwards then and disconnect that web. And as you do that, the students have to remember who said what and remember names. This could also be done just to remember names as well early in the semester. So remember names. So Joelle really likes hamburgers, and Jason is just in love with fish, whatever the topic is. And see if you can remember that. That'll really build community in your classrooms. And it's also like, it's not a quiz for you, it's for the students. So you can sit back and refresh your memory on those things as well. Another one, which you see in the pictures here, is a community tapestry. This will take some preparation beforehand. And if you're working with older students, they might be part of this preparation, or you could do it on your own. But each of those little signs, those are little statements about themselves. So for example, I love math, or I don't really like school, or I love Pokemon, or I am crazy about drawing. Whatever it is, just different things that students will either agree or disagree with. And the ones that are true, they can wrap some string around that. I put these on nails in a pegboard. You can find some simpler ways to do this with like really thick tape and just wrap it around the tape. Lots of different options there. So they wrap it around each one that is true for them. And pretty soon we have a tapestry. What's really cool is if everyone has a different color, and then you see those layers of colors and you see how they overlap. And look how many people circled this one. And wow, only one person circled that one. That's pretty cool though. It's great that we have somebody that knows how to code in this room. It's just a way to find out what we have in common and also what's unique. This one on the bottom, I love it. This was done with a very low level of English language class. Leon Savoya, one of my colleagues from São José dos Campos, he did this and had students just draw pictures. I love the dog. So if you love dogs, circle this one. If you love video games, circle this one. And it's just beautiful to see it come together. I love it when the students are the ones that make it. Another way to explore self-expression is trying out some nonverbal communication. So a few games here. Strike a pose. This one, you have students think about a topic. So maybe it's what they might like to be when they grow up, or maybe just a job in general. Choose a job. And then you close your eyes. Everyone strikes a pose to show that job, to show what it is. And then on the count of 3, everyone has to choose somebody that they see, maybe the first one they see, and then imitate that pose. And they might all do the same one, they might all do different ones, but they're paying attention to each other. Then have students go back and have one student go back to their original pose. So this is my superhero pose, this is my job. And everyone has to imitate that, send it around the circle, everyone once at a time around the circle. Then guess what it is, what job are they trying to represent? And then encourage the student, oh, you would be really good at that because you have these qualities. What do you think? And have students give each other some positive feedback, some compliments. This could be done for jobs or any other topic as well. A slightly similar game is emotional muscles. So this is a great way, especially just to do a check-in with how students are feeling. No need to speak in this one either. So give a mood like gloomy or happy, excited, and then everyone has to demonstrate with their body or a sound. You can give them a choice how much they're feeling that this day. So how excited are you? How tired are you? And then students act that out. Then this could be a guessing game. It could be, oh, I think he's really tired today. I think he's just a little bit tired. Or better yet, this could be an observational activity. Look, when Carlos is tired, his shoulders go down, his eyes are closed. When Paulo's angry, his teeth are clenched and his fists are closed together too. This is a way for them to notice each other, build empathy, build emotional intelligence. Lots of things you can do with this. And then another one, a favorite, and this is one I did in my theater days too, is Walk This Way, where we actually called it Funny Walks Tag when I was in school. But one person is the leader, and they choose a way to walk. It can be a funny way to walk. It can have to do with the theme. So walk like we're talking about daily routines, walk like you walk in the morning. Are you tired? Do you have energy? And they do that walk, and everyone has to imitate them. And it's kind of like follow the leader. It could be tag, but maybe you don't have the space for that, and that's fine. But just imitating each other, following the leader, and then you change it up, have a different person each time. This gives the shy kids like me a chance to express themselves. I loved this because I didn't have to talk, but I could really make a silly walk. And I loved it when my peers would laugh and follow me, and we would all go the same way. And another one, and this is also related to my improv experience, build on each other's ideas. There's a famous improv game called Yes and. This is sometimes done as a scene. So maybe two people are acting out a scene, or maybe it's something you pass around the circle. But basically, we start, somebody says something, maybe you give them a topic like a party. And they say, tomorrow's my birthday. And the next person says, yes, and we're going to have a big party. And the next person, or the same person, if you're going back and forth, but maybe the next is, yes, and let's have a party on the beach. Yes, and let's invite some sharks. Yes, and we'll have a place for people to swim and a place for people to have a barbecue. And it just gets bigger and wilder as it goes. And the greatest thing is you're accepting what's given to you by your peers, and you're building on it. And that is such an essential skill for learners to have these days. The other one that's like this, I'm not sure what it's called, but I'll call it It's For You. This idea is you are opening an invisible package and you give it to the next person. And there's a few different ways to do it. Maybe you don't say anything, you just open the package, but you show how big it is or how heavy it is with your actions. And then you lift it and give it to that partner. And then they receive that idea that you gave them non-verbally. And then they have to say, oh, wow, what a great, whatever, rock, elephant, anything at all. And then the other person, the one that gave it, has to respond and say, yes, I was thinking about how strong you are, and I thought you wanted to have this. And if they don't have the language for that, this can also be very, very simple. So open up something. What is it? Guess. It's for you. Oh, yes. And it also does this. It turns on. It's electric. Pass it to the next person. Oh, yes. And it flies. Look at that. Don't have to do it speaking. It can all be acting as well, but lots of opportunities for imagination. But again, the most important thing is taking what someone else gave you and then building on it. And with that, exploring some self-expression. So with this section, we talked about sharing opinions, discovering commonalities, trying out nonverbal communication, and building on each other's ideas. So some do's, help students see what they have in common. A lot of these activities make that happen naturally, but you might have to remind them. But also comment on uniqueness. Maybe somebody has a really different interest, and that's really cool. And maybe they can teach their peers about that. Also, review these, quiz students. So what was Angelica's favorite food? What was her favorite thing to do on the weekend? Have students review what they learned about each other, but also you can refer to these throughout the semester in later lessons as they relate, find different ways that they'll relate to the material, build the material even around some of those interests if you can. And with these, don't force anyone to express themselves in a way they're not comfortable with. I hated speaking in front of the class, but I loved doing funny walks tag. So give them options. So you can make a noise or make an option. You can do a drawing or say something. Give them many options. Let them choose. So going back, we have the 5 levers of recovery. Relationships, we want to build these relationships, not assume they just happen naturally. Sometimes they do, but after all we've been through with being afraid to be around our peers and our families. We really need to start from zero with some of these things. Same thing with building community. How can we build a community together? How can we be sensitive to the needs of our community? How can we build the curriculum together with students and get their input and involve their interests in it? How can we explore different ways of metacognition? How can students think about the way they think and put that in words and put that in images and put that in actions? And also, how can we give students the space just to be a kid? We don't need to fill up every moment of our day with an activity, with something. Just give them some space to breathe. Some of the activities we wrote into these lessons are also just mindfulness activities, stillness, and even just having a space where students can touch something sensory on the wall or throw a ball around outside, or just some space to be is hugely healing, super important too. So these are some games that I shared you can collaborate to win. That's a great thing rather than competing. Explore the topic together in pairs and small groups, and then give students some opportunities to express themselves. So I'll wrap up here with a quote from Barry Carpenter. If we consider the definition of a relevant curriculum as the daily lived experience, we must plan for experiences that provide the space for recovery. Now is the time to return to more humane approaches concerned with the fundamental well-being and secure positive development of the child. Without this, there will be no results that have true meaning and deep personal value to the child in terms of their preparation for adulthood. Lots of things to consider. We want to help you with it. Some sources, feel free to snap a screenshot of that. The second article in particular, I found some great games that I haven't even used yet, but I definitely want to. 7 creative ways to teach a recovery curriculum. Lots of practical activities, including some of the ones I shared here. And thank you. I would be thrilled to answer any questions. I also want to remind you before I forget to join in tomorrow night. So what I shared here relates to the explore phase of the Transforming Kids lessons that we wrote. And James Taylor is going to go over the relate stage tomorrow. So how can we make the most of a teacher-led time and get students to relate to each other and relate to the topic? So don't miss that. But let's chat, let's hang out. Tell me your questions.
If anyone has a question, please, you can put it on a chat or even in a Q&A. I start thanking Danielle so much for your brilliant presentation today. It has been exciting to see how many ways we can, with simple guidance, engage students in being a better collective group and how to bring them back to the classroom, which I think it's so important since they lost so much in the last year and a half. We have to ignite that passion for learning, and learning comes through a collective being part of a group, being part of that specific environment that has to be safe, has to be fun, has to be creative. And I think you brought great ideas with simple tools that we can really make a huge difference in everyone's life. And as a teacher, as a student, go back to what we used to be in the past before of that abrupt interruption that we got. And I'm sure that everyone will be happy to take 1 or 2 or more of your tips and start to think about how to implement them in the classrooms. So if there is any other question, I'm very pleased to have any answering, but I just want to thank you so much for your time and so much for your amazing knowledge and sharing that with us. It has been a pleasure being with you tonight.
Thanks, Dani. I'm super passionate about this and love being a part of it.
You all here see pretty nice games, darling, and took some photos, so I'm going to remember start using them tomorrow. Thank you, Tanya. Great. So great. We're reaching the top of the hour. I don't want to have anyone being held longer. So You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow Dani on Instagram, which is great. So you see our Instagram. Our Instagram is in the chat. So at transform.me and the line BR. And there are many activities that will be posted there. And I will go further. If you're interested in knowing more about the books, send us a message on Instagram and we'll get you a sample, so a digital sample, so you can really go through the entire work that has been developed by Dani, by Claire, by James, by Kenya. It's a talented group of authors that have put a lot of energy and knowledge and a lot of hours behind an amazing collection towards primary school, so grade 1 to 5. We also have Transfer Me for grade for secondary, grade 6 to 9, but this particularly is Transfer Me Kids, which I'm sure you're going to enjoy and have a look at it. So any questions? If you're here, tomorrow's link is right there in the chat, and our emails out there too. So if you feel like writing us. Dani, your final words. I'm just finishing here my speech, and thank you very much. Thank you so much. It has been a great hour that we spent together.
Yeah, I think between the two of us, we've said it. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And definitely check out James and Kenya and what they have to share this week, too. It all links together. It builds on each other. We're all a community. Let's keep in touch, share ideas. That's how we make things work.
Great. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dani. Thank you, everybody. Good night. See you. I hope to see you tomorrow.